Welcome to part 2 of my 2022 Crossing Newfoundland by ATV video series. In part 1, you saw us travel from Argentia to Clarenville, then Trinity to an abandoned amusement park. In this video, we'll travel from Clarenville to Gander and Gander to Badger. If you like these videos, please consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the like button for this video. Day 4, Clarenville to Gander. We ate breakfast at Bella's restaurant, packed up our gear and got ready to hit the trail. The weather started out overcast with misty rain. Sometimes that's not a bad thing, at least there's no dust. Poor Moosey, he takes a beating sitting up there. After leaving the hotel, we got back on the railbed. The town of Clarenville has added many trails to the area, and one of them takes you directly to a gas station so that you don't have to drive on the town roads to get to it. While I was at the gas station, Dwayne Giles and his son Dawson came up to me and told me they watched my Newfoundland ATV videos. It was very nice talking to them for a few minutes, and I gave them a few of my East Coast ATV stickers for their quads. This section of the trail we're on right now is not actually the rail bed, it's a transmission line, and it'll take us to the same place. It's just, we like this section, it saves us a little bit of time as we're heading towards Shoal Harbour Pond. When you come across a sand pit like this, there's really only one thing you can do. This is the first time that Wynn, Grant, Rob, Evan, Hal, and Greg saw this sandpit, and they had a great time. Behind the sandpit is a trail that takes you into Shoal Harbour Pond. It's a fun trail to drive on. We'll stay there for a few minutes and take some photos, have a bit of a rest, and then we're going to head towards Gander. Keep in mind that the sand pit and this trail that goes into Shoal Harbour Pond are totally optional. You don't have to do it. It's not like you have to go by here to get to Gander, but we always take this in here just because it's such a fun ride in. When I do these videos, I highlight a lot of places. There's really too many to show in the videos. There's not enough time. And really, when you're driving here, it seems like every corner you go around, you just find a beautiful spot like this all over the place. You really have to get here and do this trip in person to see what I mean. I know of retired people that have come over and done this trip and they've taken like a month to do it. And then they just explore every day with no plan. To me, that sounds like a fantastic trip. I don't know who made this bridge. I'm grateful that they did because it gets us through here. This video is from last year. I never took a video of myself going through it this year, so I'm just going to replay last year's clip. Just keep in mind, if you're planning on doing this trip, this is the transmission line. It's not the rail bed. It's an optional piece that we always do, so you don't have to do this. Don't worry about it if this kind of freaks you out when you see that this looks rough in here. That bridge has seen a lot of use since last year, and it's getting a little weaker, and the boards are sliding out a bit. So I made it across okay, but when Grant went to go across, some of the boards slid out of the way and his machine went through.
No. Whoa. Well, I think if he just backs so we can get them logs out of the way.
No video past this point because I was moving my machine around to the other side to pull them out, and Evan was pulling out some logs by hand. We did get him out though, and then we fixed up the bridge so everybody else could get across too.
I mean, what's that hurt?
Listen to Evan, Raz, and Grant. I'm pretty sure it's Howie's third trip to Newfoundland with that Talon this summer. Plus, he also went to Quebec, so he's starting to rack up the miles on that thing. It's Buffalo Bill's turn, and I mentioned earlier that really cool roof rack that he has on there. That was made custom for Bill and his machine by a company in Nova Scotia called DL Metal Fabrication in New Germany. They have a business page on Facebook if you'd like to look them up. It was gray all day, and we had that annoying fine mist. I'd rather it was hard rain because I have Rain X on my windshield and the wind would just blow the rain right off. Our next stop was lunch at one of our favorite spots in Terra near the waterfall.
Caught behind Venetian blinds, try to reach for the city lights.
All of these nice spots that I'm showing you in my videos are all marked on my GPS tracks that you can download on my website for free. I know some people have even camped here for the night because they found it was such a nice spot. There's Bill at the barbecue. Thanks again, Bill, for all your hard work planning the trip this year and for making us all that great food. One thing about these trips is we never go hungry, even the little critters that happen to be around us like this bird. You know, I can't stress enough how fun these trips are. If you want to plan a trip like this for you and your friends, check out all my online resources.
All alone, I think it's time for me to go, burn all bridges. All I know, I got lost along the way, fell between the phone, wind stitches. Time to let go, so come what may.
Another tradition of ours is stopping at the Trailway Cabin Lounge in Gambo. This is only about 30 kilometers away from Gander, where we're going for the night. The back of the pub faces the Gambo River. It has a nice patio, so if you want to sit out on the back and look at the water, you can do that. They also have a nice bar inside. It's pretty big, actually, lots of room. And one thing I didn't know, we've been here a few times over the years, and I never knew that they actually had karaoke here. I guess I never thought to ask before, but Rob did. He's braver than I am. You wouldn't catch me up on a karaoke stage.
Thank you very much.
I think it's time for me to go, burn all bridges. All I know, I got lost along the way.
We always have such a good time doing these trips, and one of the main reasons for that is the guys. The people all get along so well. We all love ATVing and we love the scenery in Newfoundland, and there's a wide range of people we've had over the years, everywhere from people in their 30s all the way to their 70s. Everyone has a great time. When we got to Gambo, it wasn't even 3 o'clock yet, so we had lots of time to kill. And the trail is in fantastic shape between Gambo and Gander, and you have to drive through town a little bit. There's actually a trail that gets you around the town, and I'll show you on the map here until you get to the Albatross Hotel, which is where we stayed this year. This was the first time we stayed at the Albatross, and we liked it a lot. They had a really nice restaurant where we ate supper that night and then breakfast the next morning before we got back on the trail. Day 5, Gander to Badger. We had breakfast in the hotel restaurant, and after that, I arranged to meet our biggest fan, Zachary Hodder of Gander. He watches all of our videos and he knows everyone by name. He told me his favorite video is when we all got stuck using the trail that people used to have to take around Corner Brook. For being such a loyal fan, we presented him with a Yeti mug, just like the ones we use. On this day, we went from Gander to Badger. We started by backtracking a few kilometers to Walmart to pick up enough food and water to get us through the day. I took the first-timers to the plane crash site and Bill took the veteran riders to Lewisport. Then we all met up at Trailblazers and River Shack at the end of the day. We had to stop several times so people with windshields on their side-by-sides could stop and wipe them off so that they could see. The mist would accumulate along with dirt and it made it quite hard to see sometimes. Except for Win, because Win had a wiper on his windshield. Regular viewers of the channel are definitely familiar with this river crossing, and it was super low this year. It was actually more like a creek bed than a river crossing. Evan got tired of trying to wipe his window off, so he just opened it up so he could see better. And Grant decided he wanted to drive around in the water for a minute to try to get some of the mud off his machine. Not that it would stay cleaner long. Get some of that mud off. Those of you that have watched my Crossing Newfoundland by ATV videos in the past know that this trail that goes into the Sabena plane crash site can be overgrown in some places. It's not really a big deal, it doesn't make it really difficult to get through. You just have to keep that in mind when you're planning this trip. Another thing to keep in mind if you're going to do this trip is you might want to park your machine at the bottom of the trail that takes you up to the actual plane crash site. You can probably get up there. It's really rough, I'm not going to lie. But you can probably do it if you want to, like we did a few times a few years ago, but we just did it just for the challenge. But now I usually walk up. So this time I was walking up, and then Greg came along in his Yamaha Kodiak, offered me a lift because he has a seat on the back. It's definitely easier going up in a ATV than it is in a side-by-side just because of the width of the machines. So I started to go with him, and it was pretty rough, I must say, especially with the extra weight of a second person on the back. His machine was banging over some of the rocks, so I ended up getting off a little bit farther up and just walking the rest of the way. Greg did a fantastic job navigating through those rocks, especially with extra person on the back.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. You're good. Yeah, that's the best way. Because his machine's narrow enough to do it.
Grant was really happy about challenging his new commander.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
That was awesome. And you know what? Like, other than like some of the, I only hit that once.
We've been to this plane crash site several times now over the years, and we're always amazed at the condition that the wreckage of the plane is in for being there for over 75 years. If you're planning a trip across the island for the first time and you're going to do the entire island from east to west, then I suggest putting the St. Martin's in the Woods Memorial on your list of places to see. But you're going to have to decide if you want to walk in or drive in.
That? That's still good. That's crazy, man. People still use that.
This was the first major civilian airliner crash in history. It was also incredibly difficult for rescuers to get to the plane because it was so far from any roads at the time. It was one of the first civilian aviation rescues to actually use helicopters. They landed at nearby lakes, and the rescuers had to walk miles through the dense brush to carry survivors out. The deceased were buried at the crash site. Hundreds of visitors have scratched their name into the side of the airplane, including descendants of the crash victims. Once you leave the plane crash site, you have to backtrack to the main road that heads towards Grand Falls. Once you get to the main road, there's this really cool little spot there called Igloo City, and I'll show you that here in a minute. Usually, once we leave the plane crash site, we'll stop at the river that's nearby and barbecue some food. But because the weather wasn't very good this day, we decided to just head on towards Grand Falls. But not before stopping at Igloo City, which is a unique community kind of in the middle of nowhere. And a lot of these places are old buses that people have built cottages around. And we were actually supposed to stay here and rent one for one of our nights this year, but it ended up being canceled. And then we came across two moose running down the road here. One ducked into the woods right away, the little one, and then the big one kept going for a little bit, and then it ducked off as well. Normally when we get to Grand Falls, we follow this red trail through town to get back to the railbed. But this year, Rob had a good idea and suggested that we go into the Salmon Interpretation Centre because we haven't done that before. A person could spend a half a day here learning about the history of salmon in central Newfoundland if you wanted to. I believe you can actually watch them migrate upstream to their spawning ground as well. There's a nice restaurant here called the River's Edge Grill, which overlooks the Exploit River. We went in there for a coffee to get out of the wind and the rain for a while. We drove a few kilometers on the road to get to the North Atlantic gas station on Lincoln Road before we went back onto the railbed to go to Badger, where we were going to spend the night at Trailblazers and the River Shack. Unfortunately for us, there were a few hurricanes brewing around Newfoundland while we were there, which explains all the gray and rain you've seen on our trip so far. After 9.5 hours and 210 kilometers, we made it to Trailblazers and the River Shack. They're both owned by the same people, and they're located almost next door to one another, which is really convenient seeing how we rented both. Both buildings hold numerous people, have large common areas, and laundry facilities. They're also located right off the trail, which is super convenient. I can't say enough about the owners, Dave and Deanne, who keep these buildings absolutely spotless. They also own a 3-bedroom house, which we also rented from them, and it's only a short distance away from the River Shack. Bill and Howie cooked up a great spaghetti dinner that night, and it was a great way to start the evening. And after that, we introduced all the new guys to our favorite card game.
Oh, really? I am too. Oh! You both lose! No. We both lose. I was putting in after. They both lose. No, you both losers.
That's a tie.
You're both losers.
Redeal. We can't lose.
Redeal.
They can't.
Hey, we gotta lose.
Nobody goes to.
When did that rule come up?
Oh, I think they both lose.
Is
and
that-
it reverts back to the guy that was before.
Oh, you just dealt with
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay.
We just have too much fun on these trips. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the like button. Here's what you're going to see in the next video.